All right, so we need to talk about the properties of water. Properties of water. So our bodies are like, 60 to 70% water. So water is a big deal. All right, you have to understand how water kind of affects the body. You can go, months without food, but you can only go, a couple of days without water, and you are in trouble without that. So, pretty important. So, the first thing, pretty obviously, is it's a good lubricant. It also provides cushioning. Okay. Number two, it has a high heat capacity. And basically that means is it can absorb or release heat without changing its own temperature. And that's because of those hydrogen bonds. So if you remember, hopefully, we've got water molecules, and they stick together due to the fact that they're polar, and that provides those hydrogen bonds. This is a little bit negative, this is a little bit positive, this is positive, a little negative, positive, and those positives and negatives stick together, forming those little hydrogen bonds. So if you have water, so a bucket of water, and let's say it's 50 degrees, and let's say you add some heat to it. So we'll say we add 1,000 calories of heat. So we got 50 degrees, adding this heat, it might bring it to like 75. Okay, it'll change it, but it's hard and it doesn't change it very much. Let's say you have alcohol. Same thing, starting at 50 degrees, and you add 1,000 calories of heat to it. That's going to go to like 5,000 degrees, okay? Because it doesn't stick together like the molecules in water. Water, those bonds are stuck together, so it's harder to get those to move to increase the heat there. Okay, so along with that, change my little color here. So along with that, water has a high heat of vaporization. It evaporates, which is great because that's the whole point of sweating. If you're hot, your body sweats. It puts sweat on your skin. Sweat is 99% water, and it evaporates into the atmosphere and carries the heat with it. Water is essential in reactions in the body. And we have two that are the most common. So we have something called dehydration synthesis. So this is where it takes little molecules and binds them together. So here's a molecule, and we've got an OH on both of these molecules, and we put them together. And to do that, we have to find somewhere for them to link. So if we take away an oxygen and 2 hydrogens, we can do that by taking away a water. So dehydration. And now these 2 molecules can link by this oxygen that's left over. Okay? We also have hydrolysis. And that's the opposite. So we've got 2 molecules linked together at that oxygen. If we bring in a water, so hydrate it, then we can pull them apart into 2 separate molecules. So those are very important. When you eat foods, we eat carbohydrates, we eat fats, we eat proteins. They're broken down so that we can get energy and things from them. When we build cells and build muscle and things like that, we're linking those things together. So a lot of that, water, those polar properties of water are vitally important. So, those polar properties, and that's really the last main characteristic, or its polar covalent properties. That provides the surface tension of water, which we talked about that. And it's a great solvent. So it dissociates things. If you put salt into a glass of water, what happens? Well, the positive sodiums, you've got positive sodiums that are linked to negative chlorides. So those come apart and start to stick to the water molecules that are the polar qualities of it. So if this is positive and this is positive and this is negative, then that sodium is going to be attracted to the oxygen and the chlorine is going to be attracted to the hydrogen. And that's going to break apart that salt, that sodium chloride, because all a salt are those 2 ions, the sodium ion and the chlorine ion, are just stuck together and it makes a little brick called a salt. So water, because it is polar, will dissociate those things. So it is a great solvent. So make sure you go through all of these things, these properties, and make sure you understand these properties of water.